Well, welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super pumped for you guys to listen in on the guest we have, Aaron Spivak. He's a well-to-do entrepreneur. He has his own podcast as well, but he has, fitness on his mind. He's built these clubs for 7 and 8 and 9 figure companies. He has this exit that has, which is $48 million exit in 48 months. Pretty impressive. I mean, the timeline, the ability to build that out, super pumped for you guys to hear his story and more of what he's going on right now, and really kind of learning toward the end some of the tactics around how to build an online business and really kind of help build a business. So stay tuned toward the end there. Before we dive in, everybody that's listening, down below in the description, I have a free workshop for everybody that's wanting to learn and build an online business. I have a free workshop down below that's going to be really helpful as a free gift for everybody that's listening in here. Aaron, as we dive into the podcast, one of the questions I ask everybody is, what is high performance? Like, what does that look like? What does that mean to you? Because going from Canada to building the businesses all over the world, like high performance and leading people to do that. Give us that definition. Love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I think it, is definitely different at different seasons, but high performance in the season that I'm in right now is really around doing whatever I can to be full in all my buckets. And what I mean by buckets for me is, my health and wellness is definitely a bucket. My fun and play is a bucket. So for me, that's sports, but a lot. Business, success, and wealth is one bucket. Of course, money is important. Friends, family, spending time with loved ones, another bucket, and I think a high performing person, specifically an entrepreneur and a founder, works on a regular basis to have all those buckets overflowing, because to me, like if your business is crushing it, but you're suffering in all those other buckets, I don't believe that that's high performance. A high performing person to me is a person that you look at, oh, wow, how does he do all that? That's, or how does she do all that? How does she put that all together? So that to me is high performance.
Tell the audience now what you're working on right now. Who are you serving? I'd love to, give a little plug to
so, the long story short, I sold my previous business, which was, we created the weighted blanket back in 2017, 2018, sold that company when I was 25 years old, which is, a dream come true for any 25-year-old. I don't want to pretend like it wasn't, but it definitely set me on a big journey to figure out who I wanted really to be in this world and why did things go the way they went for me. I post-acquisition, it was the third largest Canadian D2C transaction in Canadian history, and it was just unbelievable from an outside perspective, but internally it was extremely lonely. I felt like I did the entire thing. If I found my M&A lawyer on a Google search, and post-sale, like everyone was just coming at me like vultures. I didn't really know where to go to, who to speak to. And I then spent an entire year traveling to 37 cities. I had dinner with 7,000 founders. I would host these dinner parties. I would just pay for them. There was no catch. There was no offer. There was nothing to sell anyone. And I realized that there were so many other incredible founders who were just like me, on the same path as me, who also felt like they were on a deserted island and that they had nowhere to go and they had to read whatever they found on Twitter or LinkedIn, but they didn't really have that community. So it inspired me to start something called the Founders Club, which is a highly vetted community for 7, 8, 9-figure founders who are growing, scaling, building the businesses of the future, D2C, CPG, SaaS, tech, fintech, whatever it is. We activate virtually, both in person. And, fast forward 18 months with 400 members, it's definitely like starting to become, the superpower of a network that I wish I had. Like we had the most niche comment the other day. Someone asked for like a German tax lawyer for cross-border banking. I was like, oh my God, no one's going to respond to this. 5 seconds later, someone's like, use my guy. I was like, what? So it's things like that, that I wish I was able to communicate with a mastermind, with people that I trust, that understand me as a founder. Back when I was 25.
And you have your own podcast too, which you get to interview some of these cool people that are a part of this club.
Yeah, a big thing for the Founder to Founder podcast was, a lot of incredible podcasts like this one out there that really highlight people's stories and talk about the business and stuff like that. But for us, it was one platform to highlight some of the amazing members within the club and their businesses, but also to figure out, why they are the way they are, right? The founder behind the founder, like why why did you start your business? What was that driving pain? Who were you trying to prove? What was that story? Because a lot of people can relate with people's inner reason for why they do things rather than what they do. And people have been really resonating with. We've been fortunate enough to have it be a top 50 podcast, but again, we're only 10 episodes in, so we're just kind of getting a little bit better every time.
Yeah, man. I want to hear the beginning of all this because I know, and especially you having a founders club, like we're wired a little bit different. Like we're unique. We're cut from a different cloth. Like, what was this origin story for you? I mean, was it the lemonade stand, cutting grass, selling candy bars? What was it? The upbringing? Was it your folks? Like, what got you into like plunging into
Yeah, I
entrepreneurship?
think it was always like just I was always doing things, lemonade stands, window cleaning at a party bus company. Like I think my parents worked really hard. They're both immigrant parents. My dad worked from like 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. My mom, same thing. She used to drive the short bus to get us to and from school, figure out how to make money on the way there, on the way back. And I think it's just, you know, children, not that I have any, but it was obvious that we were learning more from watching them rather than them, communicating or saying anything in specific to us. My dad never sat me down and said, you got to start a business, but the math kind of clicked in my head where I was like, better start a business if I'm gonna be able to pay for things around here. I was too young to get a job. I remember like I started window cleaning because no one wanted, like the legal age limit was 16 in Canada. So it's like, I was 13, 14, but I got to make money, shoveling driveways, driveway sealing, do whatever I can because I wanted to buy the new hockey stick and I wanted to buy the new pair of shoes. And I didn't want to ask my parents because I knew how hard they worked for their money. So I wanted to get my own. And that's kind of what started it all. And it kept manifesting into bigger and different opportunities.
Man. And then how did you land into doing weighted blankets? And went into that one because that's a unique thing of like, I'm going to make a blanket. Like, we were talking about
Yeah.
candles even before with it. It's like there's some unique
Crazy.
niches that are just random, that you're like, man, I got to do that. How did he fall
Yeah, I
into
mean,
that?
it's one of those things that like, yeah, it just happens. I met my eventual co-founder at a bar, and only because we both dropped out of school and we were kind of like different, a 21, 22 year olds. Back when I dropped out of school, it wasn't the cool thing to do. It was like, oh, you're going to be a drug dealer. But, now when I think people drop out, it's like, what are you going to do? It's kind of exciting or whatever. There's a story maybe. Yeah, he was the only other guy that dropped out. So a friend of mine was just connected us saying, hey, you guys both have similar stories. And he was in software. I was doing juicing. And he sends me an article one day saying, did you see this? And it was 1/4. Yeah, it was 1/4 of North Americans are suffering from insomnia, even more suffering from stress and anxiety. He's like, you think we can do something to like we can build something to solve that? I said, I don't know. There was no chat GBT back then. So we were just doing some research and he remembered his time volunteering at a camp with children with special needs. And they had these, stimulation rooms. And one of the devices was like a weighted pad that would be, put on the children to relax them, allow them to go into a deeper, more restful sleep. He's like, why don't we make one for adults? And that's kind of the beginning of it. And made one sample, made a landing page, ran a few ads. Next thing you know, 3 sales, 5 sales, 10 sales. And before you know it, 30K months, 90K months, 150K months. We didn't have any product yet. We got one sample, but we realized we were definitely onto something.
What about challenges leading up to that? Most of the time, entrepreneurs, they struggle trying to figure it out. I mean, you hit the jackpot, it seems like, right off the bat. And I've heard, different stories of like, that's a good thing, but it's also kind of like a challenging thing because now you feel like you have the Midas touch and then everything you touch is going to be a blessing and amazing, but then sometimes it's not. Like, what was the journey leading up to that?
Yeah, like before that I was juicing. Like I had, 6 locations of a juice, so like juice smoothies and acai bowls, started out of my mom's basement. So I was working a full time, like I was opening up the store 6 a.m. I'd work till like 5 p.m. So like Leo, my co-founder, and Hush and I, like we would meet up at like 5, 6 o'clock. And then we'd work till 1 a.m. every day for a year, building Hush to a point where eventually I can hire people and do all that. But yeah, I mean, like it's complicated because I tell people now that you should take care of your body and your mind. But at the time, I was working 20 to 2 hour days, taking 3 to 4 45-minute naps, 7 days a week, building this out. Wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but that's just what was required. I had no money. I would DJ on the weekends to pay rent. It didn't really come for much. And grateful for that version of myself that person I am today kind of needed.
Yeah. And I think there's seasons for that hustle, right? I think there's, the balance part that you and I were talking about with buckets of looking at it, but sometimes there's seasons of like just going all in, of just trying to figure out how do I build this? And it's like the hustle and the grind just to be able to, for a season, build some of that stuff up. And I know for me, when I look in the past, even the challenges and shortcomings that I've had to deal with, I would never replace those because those have been the best learning circumstances that helped me grow into that person of character and resolve and be able to build what I've been able to build in success. Would you say the same, or how would you kind of define that?
There's definitely seasons, and I find that sometimes we leave a season too early. And I see that often in entrepreneurs. We sometimes achieve a little bit of success, or we plateau, or we feel like we plateau, and we leave the season. And it can become very detrimental because, to me at least, the seasons of an entrepreneur are not like like the seasons of planet Earth. They don't happen on schedule for the most part. Seasons of an entrepreneur depends on so many things. Depends on the market, depends on how the market responds to what you're doing, your own personal skill set, your age, your relationship status, your dependence, the money you have, the money you don't have, who you're responsible for, etc. Really is like a very complicated mathematical equation of so many different things that add up to where you're at. And everything in our body wants us to leave a season and move to potentially an easier one. But what I've learned is that the next season, that door only opens when you're ready for it. And to get ready for that season, you have to fully, fully, fully flush out the season that you're in. And I was in that, 21-hour days, not for a year, not for 6 months. I was there from 19 to 25. Didn't matter how we were doing $28 million a year in sales with 25-point net margin. You guys can do the math. We were making millions. I was still DJing on the weekends to pay for the rent because they didn't want to take any money out of the business so I could reinvest it and continue to grow. Most people would have exited the season at 10 million, at 5 million, at 3 million, right? Now, I'm not saying what I did was the right thing, but when, depending on your goals and what your life is, when it's time to move. And it's always not the time that you think it's the time. It's always a little bit further out. And that's why people say enjoy the journey, because you never know when the season's going to end. And that's the truth. One day you wake up, you're like, well, for whatever reason, I'm not that guy anymore. Like I couldn't do 21-hour days now, even if, Nathan, you're like $1 billion at the end of the work. I just couldn't do it. It's that part of me is dead, right? And people will know when it's time to move on. It's typically a lot longer than you think.
Did you wish you actually stayed out longer than the 48 months with this last business that you sold for 48 million? Or do you feel like it was a good timing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it was great timing for all things considered. My co-founder was getting married, moving to Miami. We were having a tremendous amount of changes. It was just at the end of COVID. We sold November 21. The market was about to take a big stumble, which it did. All things considered, we sold at the right time. I think also, the brand is a really big brand now, specifically in Canada, with a team and president and a board. And we're really good at getting things from 0 to 50. But 50 to 250 requires some really expert operators at that level that operate in those types of businesses. I'm too much of an entrepreneur to stick around for that.
I want to ask you some questions around fitness too, because you're a big component of that. Exercise, athlete, sort of things like that. During the season that you were hustling, building up, now that you're in this space, like how do you like look at your fitness as a component of who you are and everything like that, and how you contributed even to the success that you've had or even now?
It's a really good question. Now my health and wellness is my number one priority. I can feel the difference of an hour or two less of sleep. I can feel the difference of when I maybe don't eat as good or etc. everything matters more now because I get a lot more done, but also the energy is everything. Like I'm a very energetic person. Everything I do revolves around the energy. And if I'm not feeling my best, or if I'm not taking care of myself to the best of my own ability, then I'm, you know, putting myself in a position where I'm not going to have as much energy as I'd like. That's, people around me are going to feel that. The members are going to feel that. The team is going to feel that. So for me, it's like my energy is first.
What about biohacking? I know there's geek out over this, like
Yep.
nootropics or like just tracking metadata, of like sleeping and recovery. Like
Yep.
what are you doing right now? I'm curious.
I've done it all. I've done it all. I've done all of it. The nootrope, the new alpha GPCs, the new peps. I've done it all. Man, I don't know. Like I like it. I like it. I've got my freaking Brown's gas machine over here, which is like hydrogen gas next level. PEMF over here. I got my molecular filters there. Like, I'm definitely there. I got the culture saunas and cold plunges, and I eat as well as I can, but I'm not thinking about it all day. Like, I'm not obsessed on it, and like, I know what works for me. If I find something new that's interesting, I'll probably try it, see if I like it. Interested in the hyperbaric chambers, so I'm gonna book an appointment, go see if I like it. Dabbling with ozone therapy. I think you should always do what feels good, but know that you could always feel a little bit better. And I feel like that's kind of the balance I take. Like, I like the way I feel, but I'm always curious, if I did that, how would I feel? If I did that, how would I feel? I think we live in a time now, with AI and all the information that we can get that we can make like we can change our mind all the time, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, you're talking about energy, and there's elements of like, especially guys with testosterone. Like if we like there's less of people and less men that have testosterone. Like energy level is going down. Like people are like just in the matrix of just going day to day because they're not prioritizing their health and energy. Like that's why I love biohacking in a lot of ways and like keeping track of this stuff because then I can know where I'm at and what I can kind of tweak to alter the performance of my energy so I can maximize the results I possibly can, right? I'm looking for the output, but I also realize my limitations as a human. And so it's always interesting to kind of see all these different instruments and all these other elements to like that contribute to success, right? Like, has there been some resounding things that have stand out for you or other people that are like, man, sauna is the best thing, or whatever, that's been like the biggest heavy lifting for you?
It's a good question. I would say like stacking is the most important thing. So like in like a typical day, I'm in the sauna, I'm in the cold plunge, I'm on my PEMF mat, journaling, getting my Brown's gas in, and my electrolytes in, and pretty much taking my vitamins, right? So that is so
Let me
what
even
is that?
ask you like a normal, are you still sleeping with a weighted vest or a weighted blanket?
Yeah. Sometimes I got one at the end of my bed, and yeah, for sure. So that's 7 to 8 different things, right? And then other things that are happening just like in the house naturally. If I were to do all of those individually, it's like an hour and a half every day. It's like it's too long,
Mhm.
right? But I stack these into like one session. So if like I'm in the sauna, then it's like sauna cold plunges one session. I've got my Brown's gas water in there. My PEMF mat, I just put the tubes into my nose. So I'm doing the TENS machine, the PEMF mat. I'm doing it all in one 15-minute session. So like really like 30-45 minutes a day I can get it all done, and I feel really really good. So I think that's kind of like the thing I've committed to is like, what am I adding or taking away from my staff?
Going back to when you're running really hot in the business, what do you found that was the biggest success contribution to that? Was it ads? Was it your leadership? Was it reading books? What was the biggest contribution toward this obsessive growth that you had with your business?
I would say that the most important thing was hands down our ability to understand our finances.
Hmm.
Most operators don't really understand their finances. Potentially, it's a source of anxiety for you. It's the truth for some people that they refuse to face. And you just rely on accountants or bookkeepers to digest the information and then present it to you maybe once a month or once a quarter or for maybe even once a year. And those operators, I kind of eat for breakfast, and I didn't graduate high school, so it's not like I have a CPA background or anything like that. I was just always obsessed with the numbers. And what I mean by that is I'll give you a very basic example when it comes to at least online selling, because I'm assuming some of the listeners sell online. So a very basic example is, let's say, for example, and I'll go slow so people can follow me. So let's say you sell your product for $100, right? That's your AOV. $100 AOV, average order value is $100. Super easy. Most people, 30% of that is the cost. Maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe 35, but most of that is 30%. So you really have $70 left. And most people get angry when they're acquiring a customer at a 1x return, right? 1x return. I can't operate my business, right? At a 1x return. How could I? How can I operate my business? It makes sense, right? And that's when they turn off the ads, or even 1.5. But let's just use 1. So 1 means you spend $100, you make $100, right? Great. So you're back you have the $70 for the cost, 20% for overhead, shipping, returns, all that stuff. And let's just say you don't pay anyone anything. You got 50% left somehow, right? So let's say you got $50 left for every 100, and that's with zero attribution cost. If it costs you $100 to acquire that customer, you're now minus 50, right? It's like, all right, then that's when people shut their ads off. They go, why would I spend 100 to lose $50 every time I gain a customer? Where I win, and this doesn't work for every product, but most, is I win on a 90-day LTV. What does that mean is over the 90 days, though, that what do my numbers look like? Because I can survive for 90 days, right? We can get credit, quick credit card deals. You can do all kinds of stuff for 90 days. So if I go a customer in 30 days, 30% of them buy again, which is Shopify store average. So most people go on the Shopify store, their 30-day cohort, 30% of their purchases typically come from returning customers. So let's say at 100 people, 30% of them come back. So then now you have $30 from that 100 coming back. If people are following me here, right? Because they're $100, 30 of them come back. So you get $30 back. So now you're only minus 20 because you lost 50. You made an extra $30. And then from that cohort, maybe 15% or 20% come back and buy another time the next 30 days. And then typically you break even or you're plus $5 on super simple math. And then you work really hard to take that number from 30 to 40, right? You want, launch new products, give them a deal, take care of them, depending on consumables, sell them a bigger package, whatever it is, whatever your niche you're in. And now I knew for sure that I can make my money back in X amount of time. So I spend into that. So all my competitors are spending less or dropping their price, is spending more and increasing his price. Then eventually, when you get to scale, you do revenue per visitor. So if 10,000 people reach my site on a daily basis, what's my revenue per visitor? And then I'm scaling that. So that's just all math, right? It has nothing to do with the ad I launched, who was running it, the agency, the landing page, the product, the reviews, the email, the sequence, like all these things that people are optimizing in. This has nothing to do with any of that. All this had to do was if you and I both launched on the same date, if you were the status quo, you would stop spending and I kept spending. So over a long period of time, I had 1 million customers. We had 1.5 million when we sold the company. You would have like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. You had a more profitable business for 3 years. We were very profitable, but that's because eventually what happens, you have word of mouth, you have people talking, you have product, you have all these non-marketing things that happen when you reach scale. And every time I launch a new product, I launch a pillow, we sell 3,000 in 24 hours. Well, how do you sell 3,000 pillows in 24 hours? Well, I send an email to my list of 1 million sleepers. It's sold in a second, right? That's the benefit now because I have the customer base, right? Oh, we launched sheets, another color, this, all these different things, mattresses. We did 1.5 million on our mattress launch, right? That's twice the size of Casper's launch when they launch in Canada. How do we do it? Well, we have the customers. So that is what I say. What I do really good is the math, not necessarily like spreadsheets and complicated equations. It's like, no, holistically, knowing my numbers, I was able to feel confident about where we were spending our dollars.
I've been studying LTV and the importance of that. So the fact that you bring it up, I love that because I think it's real important. But what you're saying is that I feel like it's a complicated Excel spreadsheet to kind of calculate and see all that stuff. How do you end up breaking it down to be a little more less in depth? Is this by a team that's presenting these numbers, or how have you found the equation to be a little easier for you to kind of sort through all that? Because there's a lot of
Yeah, listen,
components.
like back then I had to do it with like my accountant, like we'd have to like figure out the cohort and like these people that bought, like what was their value. Now you have like GBT, you can just like take your exports out of Shopify and throw it into GBT and say like, here's my cohorts, what's my LTV from cohort 1, 2, 3. 90-day LTV, 30-day LTV, you know,
You just do the calculation.
etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, GBT can do it all now, which is something I didn't have. So it would be much easier to be an operator in today's world, in my opinion, at least.
When you, I feel like it's complicated with partnering with people, but you had a co-founder with this. I can imagine that there being some pretty complications there. How did that go? And if you're looking for advising people with that, would you steer away from people doing it, or would you suggest this is how you want to find that extra person and evaluating your personalities and strengths? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, it just, yeah, you said it right at the end there, right? It's really like very much should be viewed like a life partner in a way, right? Like someone who you would potentially marry or spend the rest of your life with. You pretty much are committing to spending every waking working minute alongside this other person. You better like this person, right? A lot of people, they choose their co-founders based on just like a resume. Like, oh, I'm really good at typing and or writing, and he's really good at video. So together, we're a good team. It's like, yeah, part of that is like, it's good to have opposite strengths, of course, being able to cover more ground together, of course. But that's not the only thing. You got to really be able to be there because there's a tremendous amount of relationship dynamics, very similar to an intimate relationship that exists in a business partnership. Because specifically as you grow, you'll be challenged by your employees, you'll be challenged by your competitors. If you ever go through an acquisition, you'll be torn apart during due diligence. And you really need to have a strong foundation of aligned core values. Again, very similar to a relationship. You have to both be honest and open and have the hard conversations on a regular basis. And you have to do the work. You have to do the work to constantly take your own mindset, your growth mindset to another level. You have to do the work to be able to sit down and be honest about where you're at. You have to do the work to be honest about where you want to be. Very, very important. Because what happens also, like in an intimate relationship, is if when we don't communicate, you build resentment, and resentment has destroyed more companies and more businesses, more partnerships than whatever's happening in the market at the time.
What about hiring? I mean, there's a big kick going on right now of like hiring A players because of the importance of the output and them being more free than actually costing you money. What has been your hiring strategy in the way that you've been able to grow everything so far?
Yeah, I mean, hiring is interesting, right? Hiring is always a product of things being easier said than done. Easy to say we only hire A players. It's easy to say, you know, our employees, they are 60K, so we're expecting a 3 to 5x return. And we get that out of all of our employees. A players get a 10x return. So if he's 100K, he's yielding $1 million in trackable return. Definitely, like that's the ideal, but that's not realistic. What's realistic is that you have a very strong set of core values, that you are cognizant of where you are at in your journey as a founder. Sometimes we as founders are not ready for an A player. Sometimes we are not ready for a really strong player. Sometimes we're not ready for a C player who's eager to become an A player, and you're just not the person to tell them what they need to be doing or give them the training or lead them into an A player, because sometimes you are not the A player yet either. So it's really, really important to just be aware of where you're at. And that's okay if you're not where you're at. But when you go out and hire with intention and be like, you know what? I'm not an A player in whatever this task, this role I'm hiring for. And like I've done interviews with that. Be like, hey, like I'm hiring right now for a head of HR. I've never done an HR course. I don't know what the hell HR is supposed to do. I got no clue. I'm going to be super transparent with you. So my criteria here to hire is someone that knows that we're starting from scratch and that they're going to be able to build from the foundation. You're walking into nothing, but you're still going to have to report to someone that doesn't know enough about what you're doing. Is this something you're comfortable with? And like the right person would say, yeah, an A player might be like, nah, I'm looking for structure and whatever. And that's cool too. But as the business grows and progresses, you swap people out and you keep elevating and you eventually get to a team of 8 players. But I feel like a lot of people, they got one employee, business is just like starting to make money and they're like, all right, 8 player. And it's like, what makes you think an 8 player wants to work in that environment? So it's important to just be honest and transparent with yourself and with the world about where you're at and what's fair.
How about AI and how that's been a big component of what you've been able to accomplish and what even now you view it?
That's a really good one. Here's my take on AI. Everyone now has AI basically in their pocket. And for the first time in a really long time in human civilization, we now have a world where intelligence is not at the top of the totem pole. For the first time ever, someone who's never graduated anything, literally anything, can go to a dinner with a Harvard grad, and we are both have the same playing field. We're both at the same level for the first time, because even no matter what he or she has studied, I get that information in 13 seconds. For a great example is today, I had a clogged drain at the side of my house. It's raining here in Miami. And I had a guy come with a snake to snake it out and unclog the drain. And long story short, he pulled something out of the drain. And he goes, oh, it looks like you have some sort of leak or crack or I don't know. Pulled out my phone, took a video with my phone, uploaded it to GPT, saying, what's the issue with my pipe? And it goes, based on what came out, looks like roots. You have a root that's protruding into your pipe. I told the guy, he's like, oh yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm like, thank you. And I went back in the house. Years and years of plumbing. This guy has 2,000 reviews on Google. Small human error. The knowledge, all that work. The only benefit was that he had the little snake machine and I didn't. Otherwise, I would have just done it myself. So my point is, for the first time, knowledge is irrelevant because we all have access to it. And every single day, more and more people globally get access to the internet. So knowledge is really democratized. What it's giving us is, for the first time, an opportunity, first time in the modern era, the opportunity to actually win on a human to human level. What do I mean by that? For the first time, 2 people have access to all the same knowledge, but the difference now becomes not where you grew up, not necessarily who you know, not where you went to school. The difference is now the stamina, the grit, the curiosity, the consistency, the relatability, the charisma, the personality, the likability, all those things. Human ability, like pure human characteristics, are back to winning for the first time. Back in the day, the dickheads could win because they had access that you didn't. And nowadays, we've all got it.
Yeah.
We're all smart now. We can all write beautiful emails. But now it comes down to me versus you on a human level.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing that I think actually a lot of Americans aren't ready for, because the world is coming online and everyone, like, yeah, you grew up in a state that has a great university and you got to go for free. Doesn't matter anymore. Everyone now went there. And I think that's a special place. That's my take.
Something I want to get your thoughts on this too. I think one thing that the AI is going to have a hard time doing is leading humans, because we're like talking about energy. Like we can vibe, we have these unsolicited ways to impress and impose our views and our connections with people. And I feel like AI can be helping in some level, but I think leading people and influencing people human to human is something that's going to be still important for people. Like we were talking about, it's like we're breaking down those periodic roles down to a granular level. It's like human likes human, and leading and influence people. Like that's why I even think about marketing in a lot of ways. Is it's not the bus bench or the brand, it's the person, it's the influence for marketing that's going to win in the long run. What do you think about all of
You know, there's a part of us that wants to believe that AI is not going to replace humans and lead the way and things like that. I think we're probably super, super close to, if not already, many people having AI girlfriends, and
Okay.
it's probably already happening. I think, you know, the escalation of investment into robotics is going to take AI and literally make it more physical. And all those things considered, I think we're really going to have a situation where, not to be scared of, almost to be inspired about not necessarily how I can use AI better than the next guy. I think we're all there now. How do I use it better? You know, or what's the next prompt? I remember prompts were such a big deal, right? But now it's more about understanding who you are as a person, right? Who you are on a soul level. What do you bring to the world? And I feel like that's a big question, but it's what makes us amazing and something AI can never, you know, take away from us in a way. And I feel like that's where it's all going to land. But a lot of the BS that a lot of humans waste a lot of time on. I got an eye exam earlier today, and the guy, like, you know, he's like, "Hey, do you want me to sit down for 40 minutes and take you through your eyes and all this stuff? It's an extra $150 or whatever." And I was just like, "No, just give me my exam." I gave my exam and put it into AI. He gave me the whole thing. He watched me do it. I just did it right in front of him. I'm like, "Look," and he was like, "Yeah, that's pretty good." That's what I would say. I was like, "Yeah, I know." I just went back, you know? So he's probably thinking, "Oh, like AI's replacing me." He's like, "No, it's not replacing you. It's just giving you 30, 40 minutes of your time back to read a screen, you know, for someone. You can be doing so much more for humanity than read me the picture of my eyes." So I think that's where it's going to
it? Yeah. You're doing some cool stuff, man. Like, how can people follow you? What's the next journey that you're on? What do you want to point people to?
Yeah, you know, for if you're a founder doing 7, 8, 9 figures a year, and you're looking for community, we do 150 events a year. We mastermind for us virtually and in person. If at any point in time in your journey you felt lonely, or that you're building this out all on your own, this is what we're building. We're building, you know, in a way, the modern day YPO for some of the fastest growing brands in the country. We're 30% female founder in the group, which is something we take a lot of pride in. We want to get that number up, but it really is a special group. So if you're someone that believes in the authentic dynamics of a relationship, which does involve equal part giving and taking, then this is the perfect group for you. You know, and if you're someone that is just looking for the next hack to grow your business, probably not a good fit. But if you're someone that wants to get the most out of life and really, like you said, show up as a high performance individual every single day, statistically, it's your best chance of doing so is when you're surrounded by like-minded individuals. And that goes for every modality in life, but definitely for being an entrepreneur.
I'll put his links down below for you guys to follow him a little bit more, because he's posting all sorts of fun stuff. And then he has a podcast too that you guys need to go check out too. It's getting rock and roll. And then the Founders Club is also, I'll put down a link down below too, so you can connect with Aaron more. Dude, thanks so much for being on. Thanks for guys tuning in. Don't forget to go look down in the descriptions for some workshops and other links there. And we will see you on the next episode.